In the 24 hours after the Super Bowl halftime show, Janet Jackson's entire career was dismantled.
If they're going to worry about, children and what children shouldn't see, I think they should address all issues on TV. I think there's a lot of violence on television as well.
Not by an accident, by a decision. And the people who made that decision were not at the FCC. They were inside the music industry, protecting something far more valuable than Janet's career. Before that night, Janet Jackson was one of the most powerful artists in the world. 5 consecutive #1 albums, groundbreaking tours, a cultural force entirely her own. After that night, she was banned from the Grammys, blacklisted from radio, erased from MTV. Justin Timberlake performed at the Grammys 11 days later. Let that sit for a second. Same stage, same night, same moment. One career ended, one continued without interruption. Here's what this video is going to show you. Why the punishment was never about what happened on that stage, who specifically made the decisions that ended her career in the 48 hours that followed, and why February 2004, that specific month, made Janet Jackson the most convenient sacrifice the industry could have asked for. By the end of this video, you will never see that halftime show the same way again. This is why the music industry erased Janet Jackson. To understand what was taken from Janet Jackson, you first need to understand what she had built and how hard she had to fight to build it. Janet Jackson did not inherit her success. She had to architect it in direct opposition to the people around her. In the early 1980s, her father, Joe Jackson, and her brother's manager controlled her career completely. She was being managed like a Jackson family asset, not an individual artist. Her first 2 albums failed commercially. Her image was controlled by the people around her, and her creative voice was almost non-existent. Then in 1986, she made one of the most significant decisions in pop music history. She fired her father as her manager. She signed with A&M Records independently. She hired new producers Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and she made Control, an album that was literally named after what she had just taken back. The album went to #1. It generated 5 top 5 singles, and it announced to the entire industry that Janet Jackson was not a Jackson family product. She was her own artist. What followed was one of the most remarkable runs in pop history. Rhythm Nation 1814 in 1989, Janet in 1993, The Velvet Rope in 1997, each album more critically acclaimed than the last, each tour larger than the one before it. By 2004, she had sold over 100 million records worldwide. She was, by any measure, one of the most successful and most independent artists of her generation. And that independence, that hard-won autonomy from the Jackson family machine, is exactly what made her the perfect casualty when the machine needed one, because Janet had already separated herself from the brand. February 1st, 2004, Super Bowl 38, Houston, Texas, 89 million people watching. Janet Jackson headlines the halftime show alongside Justin Timberlake. The performance runs without incident until the final seconds. Timberlake pulls at Janet's costume. A piece tears away. For approximately 9/16 of a second, less than 1 second, Janet is partially exposed on live television. 9/16 of a second. That is the moment the entire narrative of the next 20 years will be built on. Within hours, the story is everywhere. The FCC receives 540,000 complaints, the largest number in the commission's history at that point. CBS issues an immediate apology.
Change the Super Bowl performance was actually made after the final rehearsal. MTV, CBS, the NFL had no knowledge.
And here is where the story stops being about a wardrobe malfunction and starts being about something else entirely. Because in the 24 hours that follow, 2 completely different things happen to the 2 people who were on that stage. Janet Jackson is banned from the Grammy Awards ceremony, an event she was already scheduled to perform at. 11 days later, Justin Timberlake performs at that same ceremony, wins 2 awards, and gives an acceptance speech. Same stage, same night, same moment. The FCC ultimately fined CBS $550,000. They fined Janet Jackson nothing, because Janet Jackson was not the broadcaster, she was the performer. And yet she was the only performer whose career was destroyed, which means the punishment was never legal. It was something else. And to understand what it actually was, you need to look at what was happening to the Jackson name in February 2004. Here's the detail that transforms this entire story. In November 2003, just 10 weeks before the Super Bowl, Michael Jackson was arrested on charges of child sexual abuse. His trial was scheduled to begin in January 2004, 1 month before the halftime show. The Jackson name was the most toxic brand in American entertainment in February 2004. Every headline, every news cycle, every conversation about popular culture was connected to Michael Jackson's legal situation. And then Janet Jackson, a Jackson, created a sexual incident on the most watched television broadcast of the year. The press did not need to work hard to connect those dots. They were already connected. And here's the question nobody asked loudly enough at the time. Who benefited from Janet becoming the story? Because while the media was focused entirely on Janet, on the wardrobe malfunction, on the FCC complaints, on the Grammy ban, Michael Jackson's trial preparation was happening quietly in the background. The oxygen that might have been devoted to the approaching trial was being consumed by the halftime show coverage. Janet Jackson became the most effective deflection the Jackson family situation could have generated. Not because anyone planned the halftime show incident, but because once it happened, the decision about how to respond to it, who to punish for it, and how loudly to punish them, those decisions were made by people who understood exactly what that deflection was worth. And Janet paid the price for it. In the days following the Super Bowl, 3 organizations made decisions that ended Janet Jackson's career: CBS, Viacom, and the radio conglomerate Clear Channel. CBS banned her from the Grammys. Viacom, which owned both CBS and MTV, blacklisted her music from MTV and VH1. Clear Channel, which controlled over 1,200 radio stations across the United States, issued an internal memo instructing stations to stop playing her music. These were not public announcements. They were internal decisions, made behind closed doors by executives who never had to answer for them publicly. And here is what makes those decisions significant, beyond the obvious injustice. Viacom's blacklist of Janet was the same organization that continued to play Justin Timberlake's music without interruption. Clear Channel's memo about Janet was issued the same week they were promoting Justin Timberlake's solo tour. These organizations were not responding to public pressure uniformly. They were making targeted decisions about one specific artist. And those decisions were made with a speed and a coordination that suggests they were not spontaneous reactions to public outrage. They look like a plan, not a conspiracy, a plan. The kind of plan that gets made when powerful organizations decide that one person is more valuable to protect than another. Justin Timberlake was signed to Jive Records, managed by a team with deep industry relationships, in the middle of one of the most commercially successful periods of his career. Janet Jackson was a Jackson, and in February 2004, being a Jackson was a liability, and the industry made sure she bore the full weight of that liability alone. The blacklist was never officially lifted. It just quietly faded, but the damage it caused did not fade with it. Janet's next album, Damita Jo, was released in March 2004, 1 month after the Super Bowl. It debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200. But without radio play, without MTV airtime, and without the promotional infrastructure that every major artist depends on, it sold a fraction of what her previous albums had generated. The tour that followed was canceled midway through. The momentum she had spent 20 years building was gone. And here's the cruelest detail in this entire story. In 2023, 19 years after the Super Bowl, the Recording Academy formally apologized to Janet Jackson for the Grammy ban. 19 years. Justin Timberlake issued a public apology to Janet in 2021, also approximately 17 years after the fact. In that apology, he acknowledged that he had benefited from a system that protected him while it punished her. He used those words, benefited from a system, which means the person who was on that stage with her, the person whose career continued without interruption, confirmed publicly that what happened to Janet was not an accident of public outrage. It was a system operating as designed. The question is, who designed it to work that way? And who decided that in February 2004, with the Jackson name already under the most intense scrutiny in its history, Janet was the one who could be let go? Here's the answer this video has been building toward. Janet Jackson was not destroyed by a wardrobe malfunction. She was not destroyed by public outrage. She was not even destroyed by the FCC. She was destroyed by a coordinated set of decisions made by powerful organizations in the 48 hours after the Super Bowl. Decisions that were not made uniformly, because if they had been, Justin Timberlake's career would have ended alongside hers. Those decisions were made selectively, targeting one artist, protecting another, at a moment when the Jackson name needed a lightning rod more than it needed a defender. Janet had spent her entire career building independence from the Jackson family machine. She had fired her father. She had signed her own deals, and she had made her own music on her own terms. And in the end, the machine she had spent 20 years escaping used her one remaining connection to the Jackson name, her surname, to make her the sacrifice it needed. She was not a casualty of that night. She was the point of it. The industry did not overreact to what happened on that stage. It responded to it in the way that served its interests most efficiently. And its interests in February 2004 required one very specific thing: a Jackson who could take the fall without taking the brand down with them. Janet was the only one who fit, because she had already separated herself from the machine, which made her expendable to it. And the Recording Academy's apology, 19 years later, sincere as it may have been, does not restore what was taken.
We're going to start this half hour with the surprise apology from Justin Timberlake overnight. It's part of the fallout from a newly released documentary on Timberlake's one-time girlfriend, Britney Spears. Timberlake is not only apologizing for his treatment of Spears, but also for what happened after his controversial 2004 Super Bowl halftime show with Janet Jackson. ABC's
It just confirms that everyone in that industry knew exactly what they were doing, and did it anyway. Here's what I want you to answer in the comments. Justin Timberlake apologized 17 years later. The Recording Academy apologized 19 years later. Is a belated apology from the people who benefited from the system enough? Or does accountability require something more than words? Tell me what you think below. If this video made you angry, the one you need to watch next will explain exactly where this system came from. Because what happened to Janet in 2004 did not happen in isolation. It happened inside a machine that had been protecting the Jackson brand for decades. And that machine is still operating today. We covered exactly how it works and what it just did to a $200 million film in our Michael Jackson video. It is right here. Watch it next. Everything you just learned about Janet will look different once you see the full picture.